Alright, what's up guys? In today's video, we will be discussing how I run a 4-minute mile as a 180-pound bodybuilder. So some background about me, I grew up as a long distance runner. I started doing long distance running when I was 13 years old. I did it on and off until I was about, let's say 20 years old. When I was 20 years old, I got more serious into it. However, when I was 20 years old, the month before I turned 21, I decided to get into bodybuilding. And I've been bodybuilding and running long distances concurrently for the past 8 years. So here's how I did it. And so some background, my mile PR is 4:52 at 180 pounds. Interesting fact, when I was a freshman in high school, weighing 131 pounds, my mile PR was a 4:52, and I'm 100. And right now, I run a 4:52 at 180 pounds at approximately 11% body fat. So I have 50 pounds. I really have like 50 pounds of muscle more than I did in high school, and I can run the same mile time. All right. I can also bench press 310 pounds and dumbbell shoulder press 105 pounds for 8 reps. So the strength is there too while running this fast. But anyways, here's how I did it. All right, so I always lifted weights prior to running. Now, this is extremely important. No matter what, in my experience and in my observation of others, you always have to run, you always have to lift before running no matter what. I don't care if you run, take a 12-hour break, eat 5,000 calories in between your sessions. I don't know the science behind it, but if you run prior to lifting, even if you eat a lot of food and take long breaks between sessions, um, your lift is going to suffer like no matter what. I don't care what you do to recover in the meantime, your lift is going to suffer. So I figured that out relatively early. So I always lifted weights prior to running. Okay, and so I ran this 4 minute and 52 mile actually after not running for about 9 weeks. I developed post tibial tendonitis, and I didn't end up running, so I had to cross train and ended up cycling, but I didn't want to lose any aerobic fitness, so I continued to cycle a lot. I cycled as a teenager growing up. I've been cycling for about 11 years, so I still did VO2 max work on the bike, and I still did threshold work on the bike to maintain aerobic fitness. But I actually ran this 4 minute to 52 mile PR after not running for about 11 weeks or 9 weeks, and I spent 2 weeks getting back at it. But anyways, so I ran this prep. Okay, I was training to run a 5K in under 16 minutes, so I did a 12-week block. Okay, and the block was as follows. I've had a base for years, but I essentially did base for a while. But it's had 2 months, but really I've had a base for years. I don't really need to focus on a base. But base building is just where you do nothing but running miles to develop your aerobic strength and get your body used to running mileage. Okay, and then for a month I did nothing but miles and strides. Okay, and strides are like relatively short and fast-paced runs that and their purposes are to activate your fast twitch muscles, to get you used to running at a faster pace, and to help you develop speed. So what I would do twice a week, I believe like Tuesday and Friday, I would do strides anywhere between 100 and 250 meters, and I would run them between my mile and 800-meter pace. Okay, so I was used to running faster than my mile pace, and I would run them between my mile and 800-meter pace. My 800-meter, my PR is like a 2 minute and 3 seconds. So I would run 100 to 250 meters at a mile between 800-meter pace for speed development, and just to get my muscles or my body rather used to running fast. Okay, so for this 12-week prep, I ran between 60 and 70 miles per week. Of course, mind you, I was still always lifting prior. I was still maintaining my intensity in the gym. I was still getting stronger in the gym. I was still gaining muscle. So lift, while I was trying to run a 5K in under 16 minutes, my priority was always lifting. I always prioritized lifting no matter what, because that's how I maintain muscle as a bodybuilder, and that's how I gain strength as a bodybuilder. Okay, but my running routine was about 12-week block. I had one workout per week, and depending on where I was in the block, like earlier on in the block was more threshold and like hill repeats, and then later on in the block was more track work with some speed development, and then we got into VO2 max stuff where we ended. But yeah, the workout depended on where I was in my training block. So a lot of 5K pace, 5K race pace. That's more VO2 max work. 5 by 1,000. 800s at 5K pace or 800s at 3K pace. 1200s at 5K pace for like 5 reps, 60-second rest, that kind of stuff. So the workouts just depended on where I was in my training block. Um, and I also had one long run a week. I'm also a marathoner, so again for a 5K, I really didn't need to run 15 miles plus for my long run. It could have been much lower, but again, I'm a marathoner, and so I wanted to maintain, physical strength to be able to. So when I wanted to transition into the marathon later on in the season, but in terms of my plan, before I got into this, I did, mileage and strides 2 times per week for a month, and my strides were twofold. So I do flat strides, and I do hill strides. So on Tuesday I do flat strides, and on Friday I do hill strides. So it's where you're running at miles 800 meters, but up a hill, and flat, just running between mile and 800-meter pace on like flat ground. Keep me on the track, keep me on a road, just whatever, just flat ground. There's a lot of benefits to doing hill strides, and what I would do is over the course of 4 weeks, I'd add 50 meters to each distance every single week. So I would start out at 100-meter hill stride. Next week after that, 150-meter hill stride. Next week after that, 200-meter hill stride. Next week after that, 250-meter hill stride. And I would back it down to a 100-meter hill stride. But yeah, I did that, and then after that, this is for base building. After that, I had a month of mileage, strides, and one workout per week. And the one workout per week was like threshold work. So your threshold is your pace that you can approximately hold for an hour. So I did that, and the purpose of that is to develop more aerobic fitness. It makes you really, really strong, really, really fit. And yeah, that's pretty much. And again, it was around July 4th. I was gonna race a 5K on July 4th, but I really needed a break. I got post-tibial tendonitis, had to take time off. So after July 4th, I took 9 weeks off. Okay, yeah, 9 weeks off, and then I did nothing but cross train on the bike. But I was biking anywhere from 10 to 14 hours per week, so I maintained all of my aerobic fitness. I spent about 2 to 3 weeks, coming back into running, get my legs used to running. And the reason I even ran a 4-minute mile is because my gym had a competition to see who could run the fastest 1 mile time, and I ended up winning it. So that's the only reason I ended up running a 1 mile time trial. But yeah, so I did all of this in preparation for my 12-week sub 16-minute 5K prep. I will when I can run again. I will eventually get back into training to run a 5K in under 16 minutes. But that is how I did it. This is how I ran a 4-minute mile at 180 pounds. If you guys are interested, I offer coaching, how to bodybuild, how to get jacked, how to get shredded, how to bodybuild and run concurrently. I do all that good stuff. So if y'all are interested, the links in the bio. If you guys like this video, like and leave a subscribe. Peace.